He was just a boy, fragile, unknown, and ordinary, until the Roman emperor noticed him. What came next wasn't love, but a nightmare pretending to be devotion. Sporus became Nero's obsession, his invention and his victim. Mutilated, renamed, and paraded as a wife, Sporus lived a tragedy so twisted it feels like myth. But it wasn't myth. It was real. And the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes that Nero's cruelty wasn't random. It was planned, staged, and terrifying. Stay with me, because today we're counting down the top 10 most disturbing things Nero did to Sporus. And I promise by the end, you'll never see ancient Rome the same way again. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. If dark history, forgotten tragedies, and hidden truths interest you, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Number 10. Nero renamed him after his dead wife. Before the violence even started, Nero stole something devastating, Sporus's name. We don't know what he was called before, because Nero made sure history would only remember him as a replacement. He gave him the name Sporus, which chillingly meant seed or spore. Some historians believe it was a cruel joke, tied to the fact that the boy would never father children after what Nero planned to do. But worse, Sporus was renamed after Nero's wife Poppaea Sabina, who had died, some say, at Nero's own hands. This wasn't just a nickname. It was a declaration. Nero didn't see Sporus as a person. He saw him as a vessel, a way to bring back a fantasy. In ancient Rome, your name was your identity, your heritage, your future. By erasing it, Nero made sure Sporus belonged to him in every possible way. Number 9. He had him castrated as a child. Before Sporus could even understand what was happening, his fate was sealed. Nero ordered his castration, not as punishment, not for medicine, but for desire. It was a state-approved act of mutilation, designed to reshape Sporus into Nero's twisted idea of the perfect woman. And remember, this wasn't modern surgery. It was ancient medicine. No anesthesia, no antibiotics, just pain. Castration in Rome could mean crushing, cutting, or burning. Each method risked death from shock or infection. Sporus survived, but he didn't walk away whole. His body was permanently changed, his mind scarred. The act was irreversible. For Nero, it was step 2 in his sick transformation. For Sporus, it was the death of the life he should have had. From then on, his body wasn't his. It belonged to the emperor. Nero had created his puppet, but he wasn't finished yet. Number 8. He forced Sporus to live as his wife. After the brutal castration, Nero went further. He forced Sporus into a grotesque performance of womanhood. Dressed in silks and veils, covered in jewelry and makeup, Sporus was paraded not as a boy, not even as a slave, but as the emperor's wife. This wasn't love, it was theater. Nero staged a public wedding where he played the groom, and Sporus, emasculated and dressed like a Roman bride, was forced to play the bride. Rome's elite were made to attend and cheer, not out of joy but out of fear. Sporus had no choice, no voice, no chance to grieve the person he truly was. Instead, every day became a performance to keep up Nero's delusion. It was psychological torture dressed in royal robes. And the worst part? Nero didn't hide it. He flaunted it before the entire empire. Number 7. He paraded Sporus as a copy of his dead wife. Nero didn't just dress Sporus as a woman. He dressed him as Poppaea Sabina, the wife who had died, likely at Nero's own hands. Most ancient sources say he kicked her to death while she was pregnant. Instead of mourning, he tried to bring her back through Sporus. Sporus wore Poppaea's gowns, her makeup, even her jewelry. His hair was styled like hers. Piece by piece, Nero turned him into a living ghost bride. And he didn't keep it private. Sporus was dragged to public games, state banquets, even diplomatic events. Imagine being paraded in front of foreign leaders, not as yourself but as the reanimated fantasy of a man's grief and guilt. This wasn't about Sporus. It wasn't about Poppaea. It was about Nero's obsession with control, over people, perception, even life and death. And Sporus, still just a teenager, was trapped in the role of a dead woman he had never even met. Number 6. He took Sporus on a fake honeymoon across the empire. Most people think of a honeymoon as private, romantic, calm, maybe even joyful. But Nero turned his into a parade. After the wedding, he didn't go back to the palace. He took Sporus on what ancient writers describe as a fake honeymoon tour across Roman provinces. Sporus, dressed like an empress, was forced to appear at festivals, games, and ceremonies. Every stop was a spectacle. The crowds were expected to cheer and pretend this was love. Historians say Nero even demanded officials treat Sporus with the honors of an empress, as if Poppaea herself had returned. It wasn't romance, it was humiliation. Every city, every crowd, every whisper reminded Sporus he wasn't free. It wasn't a honeymoon, it was a twisted victory lap, with Sporus paraded as the trophy of Nero's madness. Number 5. Nero made Sporus reenact his dead wife's funeral. Most people mourn quietly, with silence, prayer, or remembrance, but Nero turned grief into theatre. Poppaea Sabina, his wife, had died under suspicious circumstances. Many believe at his own hands. Instead of mourning, Nero forced Sporus to act out her funeral. Ancient accounts say Sporus was paraded through ceremonies as if Poppaea had risen from the grave. He was dressed in her gowns, adorned with her jewels, and sometimes even laid in a golden coffin like a corpse. At banquets and public rites, he was presented as both bride and ghost. It wasn't just eerie. It was psychological torture. Every move, every word Sporus spoke was scripted to soothe Nero's guilt and obsession, and the Roman elite, senators and servants alike, were forced to play along. They clapped and bowed, while a teenager was turned into a living memorial of a murdered queen. Nero didn't see Sporus as human. He saw him as a shrine to his obsession. And with each reenactment, Sporus lost another piece of himself. Number 4. He publicly married Sporus in a mock imperial wedding. Powerful men sometimes twist traditions to suit their image, but Nero staged an entire empire-wide delusion. What began as manipulation turned into a full public ceremony. In front of senators, nobles, and Rome's elite, Nero held an official imperial wedding to Sporus. Sporus was veiled, dressed in silks, and presented like a true Roman bride. Nero wore the robes of a groom, recited vows, and even gave dowries as if it were legitimate. This wasn't a private fantasy. It was staged power, meant to force everyone to recognize Sporus as his lawful wife. To object was treason. To whisper doubt was dangerous. It was Nero's way of declaring, "I can rewrite tradition, I can marry who I want, and no one can stop me." Sporus wasn't just a victim. He was turned into a public prop, a puppet performing in front of the empire, trapped in a role he never chose. Number 3. Nero paraded Sporus across the empire as an empress. Most victims of abuse suffer in silence, but Sporus's suffering was made into a spectacle. After the public wedding, Nero didn't hide him away in a palace. He took him everywhere, imperial tours, festivals, games, official banquets, always dressed as a Roman empress. He wore silks, jewels, and makeup. He had servants attending him, but not out of kindness. It was theater, reinforcing Nero's fantasy that Sporus was Poppaea reborn. Crowds watched. Senators bowed. The elite whispered, but none dared speak out. Sporus had no escape, no protest. Day after day, he was displayed as a replacement, a hollow copy of a dead woman. And the most disturbing part, he was expected to play along, to smile, to wave, to obey. Every outing reminded him that he wasn't seen as himself. He was an object, a symbol, trapped in Nero's delusion, while the empire watched in silence.